Good day. We're back on the old camera angle at the moment, mainly because I've got the other thing, the magic arm, lined up for possible duty as a welding station. Oh, you know what that thing is. Yeah, anyway, so I'm going to try that out separate. Anyway, what we've got here is Rich's made in China Stripo thing, and yeah, right, fine, go away. Yeah, so all the way from China with no branding, so it's definitely a it's not trying to be anything, although, you know, technically, ethically, morally speaking, it's still a copy of something. Now what we've got here is a left-hander, as always, for Rich, and we've got a paint job which is a little bit on the ropey side. It's got a few blemishes under the paint layer, under the clear coat, and then it's got some, you know, you can see where it's been masked off and painted, and some more blemishes. It's a bit rough around here. There's little chips of, it's under the clear coat, so you can't really do anything about it, but it's where they've pulled the masking tape off or something. Anyway, so it's a custom thing with a licensed Floyd Rose tremolo and a single volume, single humbucker. So the job here is to basically, I'm going to set this up, and I'm going to change the pickup out for a Seymour Duncan pearly gates. No expense spared. Well, why not? You can always take it out and get rid of it if you don't like it. It's always the way, you know, if you've bought something, then put a decent pickup on it and maybe a good pot, and you're away. So the first thing to do, what are we going to do? What's the order of thing? Well, the first thing we do is got to change the electrics out, so let's worry about doing that. And then we're into a setup, which is going to be basically balancing up your Floyd Rose and seeing if we need any fret leveling when it's in its playing action. Got some rubber under here just for the time being to stop that off. Who knows how good or bad these locking nuts are, but they'll be the standard Chinese fare. So we'll take them off. Oh, the reason why, by the way, the strings are off is I just pulled them to stress them, or stretch them I should say, and they came straight out of the little anchors, so they weren't done up very tightly. I do recall seeing this as quite a high action, so we're going to need to get different strings to do as a what's the word, sacrificial. So we're going to have to be careful or cognizant of this action at this end before we do, or as we do the setup, because it may be we need to shave down some stuff. Actually, this looks, ooh, that's nice. This looks to be adjustable. What a fab idea. Now, that is rare. So maybe we don't have to worry too much. So, stranger than fiction. That would be good. It's always interesting to see what means people make adjustable things out of. I'm trying to get this reasonably visible. So we've got a string retainer bar here, which I have to say I can't see the point of, since you've got these locking nuts here, so the brake angle makes no difference at all. So that is a bit of a superfluous piece of design. Yeah, I'll put it back on as was, but don't really need it. Right. So all of these, yeah, they just all pulled out on stretching. So there's no point trying to put them back in, because it just would have been a bit of a hiding to nothing. Anyway, so these are always interesting because there's a massive debate, and people always have a view on whether it's morally correct, ethically correct to buy something like this or not. and there are lots of different takes on the subject. As many views as there are YouTube viewers, and so on and so on. But personally, I don't think. I suppose you could start with, there's two aspects to this for me. Broadly speaking, two aspects, right? There is the idea of counterfeit, right? Who needs counterfeit stuff, right? So for anyone who feels they need counterfeit stuff, it's not something that I care about. There was a time where I was interested in, you know, I think I went to Malaysia once, and I went to Malaysia once and I bought a counterfeit tag just out of curiosity. And actually I already had a tag, so it wasn't because I needed a tag but couldn't afford one. Just wanted to, out of curiosity. And they were actually, interestingly, the counterfeit tags lasted longer than, or kept working better than the tag I'd actually bought. So I eventually bought a better one that lasted longer again, but yeah, but for $5 or something, this counterfeit tag was surprisingly long lasting. Anyway, so the first issue of counterfeit, I don't care for counterfeits personally, just because I don't feel the need to have something. I'm not so attached to any brand of anything that I'd want to. I don't care about the status part of it and having it. I think I might have done once when I did buy a tag for a lot of money. These are crap screws. Oh my god. Anyway, they're half not undoable. Yeah. So, but the less I care about brands, full stop, the less I care about, the less the idea of a counterfeit appeals to me in any which way. So the sort of the whole idea of needing or wanting a counterfeit personally isn't my thing. And then beyond that, you've got the idea of actually what's the legality or the morality of counterfeits in the global economy. And it's really, it's always sounds like a tricky argument. A lot of youngsters these days, you know, growing up in a world of copying everything and borrowing everything and reusing everything. So the idea of copyright seems a bit alien, and actually a lot of people struggle to get, you know, they'll copy and paste a chunk, or they'll reuse a chunk of video, and then they'll make it okay in their minds by saying something like, you know, I'm not trying to pretend I'm the owner of this copyright, so therefore it's okay. Well, just by claiming you're not the owner of this copyright doesn't make it okay. The purpose of copyright is to protect somebody's intellectual property from use, reuse, or misuse. So I think a lot of younger generation people don't see an issue with intellect, or don't get what intellectual property is, and therefore don't really see too much of a problem of, how come that's stuck? Don't see too much of a problem of, that's rubbish, reusing stuff. Let's take this off this end. Interestingly, and it's always the way, probably until they set up a company to, I don't know, make something and, you know, market something, and then suddenly they realise that, oh hell, I can't protect my intellectual property, it's terrible, everybody's pinching my ideas, or sort of the Chinese have nicked my thing that I've worked so hard to develop, why can't I protect it? And of course, well, you can't protect it, or it's as hard to protect as it was for those people when you were wearing their fake watches or fake handbags or whatever. So do I think that copyright, intellectual property should matter? Yeah, why not? It's not that there's no rule that said it has to, but it's like one of those things is, do you want to be, oh my goodness, tiny little pot, do you want to be part of a world where that sort of rule of ownership and intellectual property exists, or do you want to be in a wild west where nothing you made you couldn't protect the intellectual property in anything you yourself manufactured or went out of your way to design and create. Because the truth is, while you're just a consumer, most people don't really care much about intellectual property and copyright. But suddenly you become a producer, then it suddenly becomes very different. Right down to music. You don't want everyone sharing your music for free. Well, some people do, but a lot of people would like to make some money out of it, and then it suddenly gets very important to them. Anyway, so I'm not a fan of counterfeits, because I think that in a world of law and order, ideally, I think that someone like Gibson or anyone else should have a right to protect or Fender should have a right to protect what is intellectually protectable. Just as, like I say, just as you would probably like to if you suddenly invented something really cool. So I'm not a great fan of that, but the truth is too, is we know that the Chinese, for example, aren't playing into that world of quote-unquote law and order that we're talking about, so they don't rightly care that much. Anyway, so that makes it difficult. We've got a global world, and I'm just going to check this out, because this is something that's been interesting me for a long time. Left-handed pots, as in left-handed guitars. If I'm understanding it, the only reason they're left-handed is that the everything's in reverse in terms of wiring. Now that seems to make sense to me. So the middle one always goes out to the jack, and the pickup comes in here, and then we've got the earth to the claw, or to the tremolo. Excuse me. Yes, so as far as I understand it, it's one of those things, you don't do too many of them. You think, is there such a thing as a left-handed pot? Apparently not. Apparently it's left-handed by virtue of rewiring it. Now, just to let you know, there are some dents and things on this neck which are sub-optimal. There's a dent in the lacquer here, which you can really feel with your thumb. It's in that sort of place where it runs right into there, and it's kind of like compressed in the wood, and then they've lacquered over the top of it, so you can feel it there, along with, like I say, these little chips where they've pulled back the masking tape. But it's what you'd expect, really. Oh yeah, what that was funny. Sorry, Rich. It just occurred to me. We were talking about necks earlier on what do you call it? Messenger, and I was saying, oh, I'd be interested to see about whether there's rosewood in this neck, and of course I forgot it's maple, so no, there's no rosewood in it. Forget we had that conversation. Oh, this has been in the queue, so I looked at it once when it arrived, or close after it arrived, and then put it away. Now, okay, so according to this, there is some sort of adjuster here, which I find quite interesting. But the bridge, sorry, the nut is is tightened down. I'm just going to take these little screws off as well, if I can. The locking nut piece is locked down, but there are what appear to be two little tiny adjusters. It's actually not a bad little design if it works. The problem is, I have to say, I think it's already at its lowest setting at the moment, so I think we would probably need to reduce that, if anything. Well, let's have a look at its construction for fun. See what we then need to do when it comes to lowering that action, because typically with a locking nut you just got what you've got, and it's either dictated by, well, it's dictated by the thickness of the piece itself, thickness of the piece itself, and be cut out in the wood, and you have to, if you want to adjust it, you've pretty much got to adjust one or the other. So what we've got here is we've got a shim. We do have a little adjuster at the front, which is quite cool. So we've got this little metal shim. Sits there, which is quite neat. And then on top of here, let's take these two screws out, we've got the little piece, but unusually at the front edge of it, hold on, yeah, at the front edge of it, it's quite unusual, and look how, wow, look how much room there is in those slots. I don't know how well you probably can't see this. Back it against something white. Got something white. Right on. Look at this front line of slots. Look how wide they are. That's the nut that I guess it's just working as a 0 fret really. So you're using the back ones with the V notches as locators, and the front one should just be a surface to run off, so it doesn't really care how wide it is because it's already got directional stability. Now within that we have got this cute little thing which appears to be an adjuster. Ooh-wee. That's neat. Now if you were to adjust that muchly, stick those babies out either side, and then you put that on there, you have a not very solid thing. I guess it would pull it flat in the end. Let's have a feel. Nice. Well, that's a good idea. I've not, unless I'm totally mistaken, I haven't seen that before. So that even that, it's not perfect, but as soon as you lift that up it then rocks a bit more. But it's a nice little adaptation, even though this is currently too thick. So it's a case of, what do we do if we need to? Well, we don't want to reduce that because that's got a little lip on it, so that's out of the question. We could try thinning that down, but it's solid metal and it's going to take a while. We'll take that down, which again is a little bit difficult to get perfectly, and it's a little imprecise. Just looking at what they've already done there. That's not even a precise right angle. There's bits of wood needing clearing out. Wow, that's quite a lot. Get there eventually. That's not perfectly straight. It means that won't sit perfectly up straight. That's true. Interesting. Small details, but interesting details nonetheless. So the best way to flatten that off is to just chisel that little step that ought not to be there. God, it's bizarre, isn't it? A lump of lacquer sticking out, I think it is. Yeah. 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 Split off and disappeared, which is fine. Okay. Right, much better. Nice, nice, nice. Ow! Cut thumb from somewhere. Okay, so we still have to decide on whether to how to reduce this. This is doable. It's probably even better to replace this with something else with 2 holes. All it needs is 2 holes drilled. This is a fixed size, so we can cut another piece of something and replace it, maybe a copper or something. And the only nice thing is that that's painted black, but it wears off pretty quickly anyway. So that would be the quickest way to reduce, the smartest way to reduce that action. So we'll leave that there for a minute. Kind of lots of bleed over from the red to the white, so it goes kind of creamy, or not orange, pink. No, it's orangey, creamy colour, the white in different places. But frets a bit sharp in places, but overall they don't feel too bad to kick off with. Doesn't look too bad. A little bit of curvature in the neck showing up there at the moment. Anyway, so let's get on with the electrical stuff. So the interesting thing, so yeah, coming back to the issue of counterfeits, not something I'm a fan of, and the bottom line is whether there's a lot of people who get quite angry about it, from actually some of them from sort of often in forums from a patriotic American point of view, which is to say, you know, American guitars can't be made by foreign Johnnies, and therefore they shouldn't try. Let's just pull off this one, should be. And you know, the idea that if you are patriotic about your own country's industries, as many Americans will be, then the idea of a Gibson copying, you know, counterfeiting the Gibson product is a threat, and isn't a fair thing to do on a global market, in the global market. You know, under the international rule of law, and I totally get that, and I understand why people rally against it. Totally fair. Okay, we got a B500K. Now, excuse me, rather than cutting anything afresh, we might as well just desolder these. I was going to get a new pot. Don't suppose that really there'd be that much wrong with this pot, but we'll put we're sort of limited in choices of new pots, really. Actually, what I'd be putting in wouldn't be much better. I've not got any CTS mini pots or anything like that, so maybe it's just a case of let's just replace. What's it got on it? CF, whatever that stands for. So we're going to take out, God, next door. Let's see if we can involve this overkill grabbing thing. I don't think we can actually. I think it's almost a bit too much for what we're trying to do. Hey, look, I want to hold that there, not touch the guitar. Oh, I don't know, maybe. Maybe we can do it that way. Yeah, why not? Look at that. The magic arm does me proud. Yes, so if you want to live in a international rule of law, then no, counterfeits can't be a good thing. And to, you know, the point is, this is a counterfeit of, or a copy of a Fender, but then so is this, a copy of a Gibson double cut, Les Paul double cut. So, question is, the question is knowing what is and isn't protected, and that's there's a one end of it that is always under quite significant debate. Is this on? No, it's not on. That would help. Yeah, so you know, there's been some recent, or not so long ago, cases where Fender have lost claims about shapes and so on, and what is actually protected under their copyright. It's a difficult one to do, because you could say, is there any quantitative or qualitative difference in, is there any difference in me making a Les Paul double cut shaped guitar with my, you know, pickups that I've sourced and, you know, made it myself and blah blah blah? Is there any difference between that and me trying to replicate one and put Gibson on the headstock instead of real love guitars? You know, is it fair to say that the copyright or patent protects generally the shape, and you'd look at mine and you'd find the pickups in a different place, and the knobs are going to be in a different place, and the electronics cover's different, and the headstock shape is slightly different, and the neck joint is different, and so on. Is that morally, ethically outside of the, you know, the ownership of Gibson? You know, do we? Is it as simple as saying, well, you can make anything in tribute to the shape of a Gibson, but you're in trouble? It's an ethical problem if you try and counterfeit it, or make a direct copy of it. You know, and in some ways that seems to make more sense to declare that as the point at which it's a counterfeit. You know, that's morally, ethically wrong if you're making what is effectively something that's trying to pass off as, and that's the, you know, that's the key worry that people have about counterfeits. Obviously, that's a huge threat to their business if you're, you know, able to produce something that isn't really a Gibson, but then fool people into thinking it is. That's a real problem. And in that sense, this guitar here is no different from what I do, which is to make an iconic shaped guitar that to the eye looks similar, close in shape to that famous guitar, and who knows what. I mean, it's very microphonic, and it's clearly not wax potted, hence the squealing noise. Now what I'm going to do is just put this up here for a minute, and then we'll take the pickup out of there and stick the new one in place. Yeah, so that thing there is not really any attempt to pass off. So that's at one level, it's not a cynical attempt at counterfeiting in that respect. Question is it nonetheless still similar enough to qualify as a copyright infringement? And I don't really know the answer to that. And so I think the interesting other dimension of this, which makes it quite difficult to sort of come down one way or another, is that the buying those counterfeits, even when they are, you know, carry the counterfeit Gibson logo, for example, or Fender logo, which this doesn't, it's still not illegal to buy them, although it's illegal to make them. And they may, that illegality may still be punished by, you know, customs seizing them, which occasionally they do, but they're not illegal to buy. They are illegal to make. And the problem, of course, is that the Western governments have no ability to don't have any ability to stop the Chinese doing it, other than by, I suppose, you know, normal international diplomacy and threat, which doesn't seem to work very well. Anyway, so what's copyrighted, written, is, or what's protected, is sometimes a dodgy area to begin with. So that, and even where, you know, the trademarks are clearly the property in the Western terms of someone like Gibson or Fender. God, why is this so hard to do? There must be some sort of tool that can make this a breeze, because this just does my head in. Get it to there and hold it. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, so no, please, no. It's too much spring. Too much spring. Anyway, yeah. So it's even when they're copying the brand name, it's not illegal to buy, but it is illegal to make. And the question there is still, is it morally acceptable for a guitarist, for example, to buy one of these things? And the question is also, let me just do something here. The question is also, even if the law says you won't get arrested for buying this guitar, should you be doing it ethically? So I guess there's a legality and there's an ethicality about it, or legal and ethical dimension. And this is not a very good fit. Thanks very much, Gibson, Seymour Duncan. That's a bit of a no, not a good place. Yeah, so who knows? And added to all of that, you've got the sort of side of it where some people have a really strong view that you shouldn't touch it as a luthier or a guitar tech. And for me, I've never found it, if something's legal and somebody brings, so let's just say that guitar here is, for a number of reasons, legal, as in it's not copying the brand trademarks, first, it's not counterfeiting the trademarks, it doesn't qualify as a counterfeit, it's not passing off as anything. Whether or not the striped pattern is close enough, or first of all whether or not the striped pattern is protected or not is another issue, and then whether or not the one on this guitar would be considered, oh Jesus, I'm tempted to cut these springs down to make this possible, but it just seems silly to be supplied with such a long spring and then chop it. Yeah, so whether it's A, protected, and B, close enough to be considered an infringement, even if it was protected, is again anybody's guess. Just out of interest, That's a curved pickup ring on a flat top guitar. That's curious, sir. Anyway, yes, so the position I go to is, providing this thing, what I'm doing, the object is clearly not illegal or an obvious counterfeit, right? And while it is evidently legal to buy, then I certainly am not going to be in a position to ever judge a customer and refuse to do something to improve their guitar. I think it would be a dubious and unproductive moral high grounding. And now, that doesn't. Do you know, this is a flat bottom one, and it's lower, but this doesn't need to be high, so I'm going to go with that one. I'll swap it out. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So I'm not gonna pass some sort of moral judgment on a customer when it's not even a counterfeit that's at issue here. It's a copy in the style of, and as is stuff that I make, and it's not something I think is technically incorrect, and nor is it legally clearly a problem. So, like I say, you do get some comments where people are understandably aggrieved, and quite often it can be from the purist. It's either from the purist, which is, if you want a Gibson, damn it, why don't you buy an American original and stop using this Chinese junk? And I understand that point of view. So I'm going to reduce the size of these springs. I can't work with those ridiculous things. So yeah, that's an understandable point of view, and then that becomes a debatable issue. Down to whether, oh my God, this is so prehistoric. It becomes a debatable issue whether as to whether Gibson, for example, their quality was worth the additional premium, and then it's a whole bunch of subjective argument, different takes on that, and you can argue that forever. But I don't mind people feeling that way about it, and I can well understand it. Certainly, if you're powerless to stop an invasion of Chinese counterfeits in a climate in which there is no kind of there's no way of stopping it, and then it is a direct, it's a significant commercial threat, and people have got every right to be exercised by it, I suppose you could say. Right, let's just get this and pair these off. Seymour Duncan's pairs. We're not doing any coil splitting, so we're going to do the red and white. Let's just double check that. It's the red and white together. It's the series. They call it the series link. That's what they call it. Yeah, the series link. So we'll just put those together, and then the green and the bear go together. Don't know how you can see that. Yeah, green and the bear go together, which I'll also try and cover off with a little bit of rubber tubing, and then the black is the hot. Now there aren't any other pickups obviously on this thing to run any risks of out of phase-ness issues, so we can just go ahead and do these without too much thought. Well, too much worry, I should say. Anyway, so have I set up a Gibson with, yes, I've set up a Chibson, sorry, not Gibson, a Chibson, and got a lot of flack as well from people saying, well, like I said, it's two different levels. There are people who tell you what you've done is immoral or illegal and you should be ashamed. That's one thing. And then there's people that tell you that what you're doing is you should be advising the your customer not to waste money on something like that, and that's quite a common theme. Is, you know, why are you taking a couple of £100 off them to, for example, upgrade, put a decent pickup? You know, that's surely throwing good money after bad. Apart from the fact that you can obviously take out the pickup and take it anywhere else you want, is you're not wasting money. But I get the point. You know, people, what they're saying is that they wouldn't want to spend more money on what's obviously, not in this case, but on the other ones, the Chibsons, what are obviously counterfeits. So I get it. So that would be your preference not to do that. The only difference is when a customer comes to you and wants it done, you know, the only thing I check actually is to make sure they understand that it's not going to improve the kind of resale value of the guitar. You know, and also some of the basic quality of it is not going to be changed. And, you know, there are limits to it. And I have to say that people who've nevertheless asked me to carry on and do the thing have fully understood that. And the point is, they want the modifications because they want them. It's their money. By the way, that's a buzzard. That sound, it's incredible. Beautiful big birds. I want to go and see it. We have them all over. They're very common now. Okay, let me just have a look. You can come with me. I doubt you'll see it, but it's going to be quite far away. We may get lucky. It's behind the house now. Where is it? Darn, it's low down somewhere. Somewhere over there. Well, if we were to sit out for a bit, we'd no doubt find it. Oh, it would come back. Anyway, it's nice being able to do that in one's workshop. Okay, so that's me that, and this is me this. Now, I always like to cover off when you put the green bare wire and the black together. Sorry, the bare and the green together. Then I also like to add a little bit of insulator as well, just so that the more you're insulated around here, the less things can get touched against anything else. Now, in a simple wiring diagram like this, there isn't that much to worry about, so I'm being a bit over the top here, or over cautious. But in extremely busy wiring diagrams or wiring setups, that can be a mega hassle. Okay, so that's that. Now this is going to go kind of out the opposite end of the thing here. So it's technically back to front, but as far as I know, these pickups don't have any particular direction for left or right. Some single coils do, and I think it's more because of the position of the poles usually, but oh, come on. A humbucker like this, pretty certain works comfortably all ways. Now, downside about this, and I suddenly realised this, only just realised this now, is that actually we have got so much spare wire in this that we're struggling to find somewhere to stash the wire. There isn't enough space in that little hole there, so it may well be, I want to tack down these with a couple of these screws, we might have to cut the wires considerably. I mean, I've lost some of it by dragging the wire across the pickup cavity, which is quite good, but I think we may still have to lose about a mile of it. It's a better fit being flat. Yeah, so look, that is a ton of wire. We might be able to tuck it in there. I mean, it would be nice if we could, because it's going to save me a lot of re-splicing and re-faffing with the wires. But I cannot be sure. Now, can I get any nearer? Go back to there. Go to there, right. So, this to the top, this to the front. So even that's a bit long, unnecessarily long, but hey, shan't complain. Simple wiring for a change. And then, this may not be by any stretch the best arrangement I've ever done for wiring, but let's put a little bit more solder on there for good measure. Come on, it's a bit stiff when you have that shielding shrink stuff. It does stiffen up the wire a bit. Okay. Ding, ding, ding. There we go. Bzzz. Sounds like some modern surgical device. Right, loads of spare wire. Well, let's start by gently putting that back in to its place. Not even that is difficult. Thank you. Zinc alloy, the world's most revolting metal substance. Stay there. Yeah. So I think the other thing about all this stuff about people grandstanding or taking these moral high grounds on certain guitars and saying I wouldn't touch that because it's being made in a sweatshop, blah blah blah, why don't you buy something where real American workers are paid a decent wage? And actually, I understand nobody wants to think of their guitar or anything being made in a sweatshop or whatever, but the truth is most people's things are made in some sort of sweatshop. An awful lot of stuff. There's very little that is you know, made in a high wage economy. It's part of the global game, isn't it? You know, and then if your sort of moral benchmark is, well, I'm not gonna buy anything that is made by anyone earning less than what I consider to be a living wage, translated into their economy and cost of living, you might say, then you get all sort of global economist, and you have to work out what you think, and then you have to go and research and see whether you know, this, you can prove these things are being ethically made and so on and so on. Okay, it works. It's volume, it's off, it's on, and it's wired the left-hander way, which is back to front. Just reversing the lugs, basically. Oh Jesus, how many times am I going to do this? This is, if you, I know you won't be bothered to, but if you had watched every one of my last 3 or 4 videos, I've done exactly the same thing. Because I had this idea of, oh look, I found the Zoom, no, I found the Boss Roland Microcube power supply. So I thought, I know, I won't bother bringing batteries out here anymore, I'll just plug it in. And of course, I lift it up, put it down, lift it up, put it down, which means every time I yank that wire out the back of it, and eventually it's going to break. But in the meantime, I now promise I will not do the same thing next time. I don't believe that at all. Okay, so that's the complex wiring job done. Seymour Duncan, it put in this little baby, this horrible little thing. I mean, it's a candidate for wax potting, and then somebody could probably have fun with it, but you know, just let's see what the output is, or the resistance is on it for fun. The problem is, all of these things is, even if I wax potted it, would I end up using it? Probably not. So why would I bother? Okay, that's sort of 9.95k ohms, which is okay for, it's hard to say what it sounds like, but it's a medium output humbucker by the looks of it. But like I say, wax pot or bin, probably bin's best place, but I'm not being snobby, it's just he pays what you gets your money for or something. You know what I mean, usually. Anyway, okay, so that's that part done. Now the trickier part is going to be, let me just check, well, I think I'll better check with Rich, if I haven't already, what the ideal string gauge is, so I can determine what I'm going to put on as my sacrificials. Just a quick look at this here unit. This is one of those Floyd style units that, again, people are incredibly uptight about, you know, that they're junk, and their complaints are that the knife edge of the tremolo is trash and it wears out on, you know, it's not made from good metal, which I absolutely guarantee it's not going to be made from fabulous metal. First of all, these things are in the wrong place by and large. Let's get this. We're going to get a stagger pattern, which we need. We're going to kind of go that way. Yeah, so that they're sort of, you know, they're made as cheaply as any Chinese guitar is made. But you know, I've always been skeptical about the sort of super knowledgeable claims that they are therefore crap. I did one for Simon, which was a rally copy, and it had exactly this kind of so-called cheap, crappy Chinese bridge, and put it together, set it up, and it played beautifully well. You know, and basically what you're working with is chromed steel. or chromed, some brand of chromed steel. No, it isn't going to be high grade steel. It's as simple as that. And you know, if you're an aficionado, you want sort of titanium or better for your metal to metal contact. But this is not that. This is never going to give you that. This is a inexpensive Chinese copy using lowish grade steel or metal, possibly even alloys. I think that will be a steel block, but it'll be chromed. And then what you've got is you've got basically two ways of adjusting your height of action on this thing. Well, one actually, sorry, it's not even got other thing. One way of adjusting the height action. First of all, the height will, once you're floating and it's sitting like that, the height will be at a certain place, and then you raise it or lower it by raising or lowering these posts, and that raises the pivot point up or down, and that's your basic adjuster for playing action at the last fret, shall we call it. Now, the issue with these is, again, one thing that people get really irritated about and angry about is they insist that you must never turn these devices while this thing is under load. Right, so the typical place you'd want to do it is when you've got it strung up and you've got your tremolo in equilibrium where you want it, and then you think, okay, the action here is too high, so you want to bring it down, so you bring the whole thing down using these two. On some guitars you also have an up and down action here, but these don't have it. So the idea is you bring it down with those two posts. Now you either do one of two things. You either take all the strings off again, including unlocking these, or slacken the strings off till they're floppy, and then make a small adjustment and then tighten the strings up again. If you do that, then one thing you know is you're not adjusting this under tension. And there's people think that the act of turning a post inside or pressing against this face is going to damage it. Now that's obviously hexagonal, so that's probably going to do more damage than turning a round post, but there is that point of view that ruins the faces. Now I've done it on cheap guitars and tremolos of my own, and I have not managed to ruin or damage the faces. So, and I'm yet to hear a convincing argument as to why it would, frankly, because this thing is, you know, notwithstanding how good or bad the steel is, right, but as an object, this is designed to sit under permanent two-way tension. So there's a force of the strings pulling it that way, and the springs pulling it that way as well. And the two of them, the combination of the two of them, leave this in permanent tension, but also permanent force of these two components. Then if you use it, you're permanently whacking it up and down, wavering up and down on that knife edge, so-called. The argument I want to know, and I haven't heard, is I want somebody to tell me why turning these while the strings are under tension, why turning these a little bit to raise and lower the action with strings on is somehow more destructive than this sitting here all day doing that. Why is turning it more destructive? What is it about turning? Is that going to scissor off something? Is that somehow going to break it more than the constant force of it doing this all day long? Now, I'm not saying it doesn't, but I haven't heard an argument that convinces me as to why it would. Simple as that. So until I hear that, I don't believe it does. And that gets loads of flack, and people go, I won't let you near my guitars because you've done that thing that way. But fine, you know, I've done experiments, you know, not millions, but I've done it with, you know, cheap tremolos, and even cheap tremolos haven't damaged. Look, this scratching here. I need to try and, what is it? Is it glue? No, it's some sort of glue, thankfully. Whew. I was thinking I'm going to have to get some scratch remover out, but it's a residue of some sort of glue, which will come out nicely. Yeah, so you know, as all things, I'm just waiting to hear a convincing reason why. Simple as that. And I ain't heard it yet. But you know, I try to stress that having said that doesn't mean I insist it doesn't do damage. I have no compelling case. And an argument, the classic thing I always go on about, is an argument is not you just saying I believe it will damage it. That is not an argument. That's a position or a assertion. An argument is a considered articulation of why. Right? I haven't heard anything that convinces me. Now, right now, I'm just going to look for, I don't know where I put it now. Here. I'm looking for a bit of shim material that will work, that's thinner than that metal thing that's currently in there. Now, I do have some copper. I've got some big chunks of copper here. Let's just do a comparison, because if this is thin to begin with, or it's thinner, noticeably thinner than the shim we've got going here, then it might be a good start point. I have to go and get the tin snips to do it. So this is 1.5 pretty much. This is 7.9, so that's half the thickness of that metal. I think I'm going to make me a piece or a copy of that shim using this copper copy, and the reason for that is so that I can then lower the action substantially to kick off with, because I know it was too high when I checked it when the guitar came in, but I can lower it, and then I can make the adjustment by using the little grub screw adjusters, which is what they designed it for. So meanwhile, I'm going to go away and cut this out, come back and sand it to a flat thing. So back in a minute. Okay, hold on. Phone out the way, radio off. So I've just I made a copper alternative to this shim. A duplicate, in fact, out of copper, and I'm going to use that. Now, I've forgotten what this thing came with. I suppose I could find, oh yeah, some strings on the floor, caught in my trousers. Let's just measure the thick string and see what it tells us. It will give us the clue. Right. So what I've done is knowing from the outset that the first fret action was too high. That was my first observation on this guitar when I got it out of the box. Let's just check this. 46. That says it's 10s. Oh, that's not 46 then. Or is this? Oh, hang on. What am I looking at? That's 40s, 42s. It's 9s. Okay, let's put 9s on it. Unfortunately, that's going to cost me a set of strings. Yeah, what was I saying? Where was I? I've got lost. Yeah, I've made a duplicate of the bit that I've now lost somewhere. The little metal shim. I have made it in copper, and it's now under there. And because I knew from the outset that it was too high, the string first fret action was too high, I've now taken it down to where I need it. Plus, I've added strings in the recycle bin. I've added a little lift up, so I've taken it down by half and added a little lift on the front with the adjuster here, which is, you know, the cute little bit. That's amazing. Did I put it in my pocket or somewhere clever? No, here it is. Right, that's spare at the moment. So we'll see if my guess is as good as I think it is. So I've gone half the height, which may be a bit low, and then I've gone up a fraction using the little adjuster. Now, either which way, it still isn't up to the height that the default was originally, and which there was no really way of adjusting it other than to sand down the shim itself or to change the cut the underlying wood, which I don't want to do. This, by the way, the way this attaches, it pulls the thing just slightly that way, and so I've got a hair's breadth of copper sticking up here, which I don't want, so I'm just going to undo it one more time with some not very good fixing screws, I have to say. They're not the strongest looking things in the world, but they don't really have to do anything other than hold it in place. That's the main thing. So just to tidy up this kind of little overlap, I'm going to just lay it down on here. Just need it to be that little bit shorter and without anything sticking out. Okay, right, so there we have it. Put that back on there with our little feet. You'd hardly be able to see it, but our little feet are sticking up on the shim block, the little grub screws. Right. Put that in there, do it up carefully. And try and make sure it goes on as central as possible, but the screws actually want to pull it just to one side, very slightly. And that's the slight fault of the positioning of this thing. So I'll try getting one screw in first in the position I want it, and then tighten up the second screw after we've done that. It's weird. It's a bit primitive, really. I ordered a Tusk adjustable nut replacement, actually replacement for the Gibson Zero. Well, it's not the Zero Glide, but it's the Gibson brass Zero nut thing that they put on their guitars by default. And although it was a great sounding idea, its limitation was that it turned out to notch the front edge of the nut very quickly, as any zero fret does. There's just no way around it. Okay, so I now have my nut in place. I now want to be able to load up with some sacrificial strings, which unfortunately I think are going to be new ones, which annoys me unless I can find some. Now I have no idea right now of what a default action on this guitar is going to be, or where this is going to need to be. I suspect, it's just a guess, I suspect it's going to need to be pretty low to begin with, so I'm going to dial this. Let's go right to the deck to begin with, and let's have a look at that. So it's actually quite a long way in. And it goes into foam, which also then can go a bit further. So that would be at the bottom. So that's quite a way into the hole, and then that's our floaty place. Now technically, if I could be moved to shove some spongy stuff under there, maybe jam that, we could sort of look at that like that, and actually might not be altogether a bad idea to have a look across and see what sort of action we're coming in at. See, that's too high. Well, yeah, a little bit too high. So assuming that our trem sits lower than that, which I'm hoping it will, that's not too far off, but I'm starting at the lowest setting, so anything other than that we're going to have to shim necks and all manner of things. So I guess as a start point, it's not a bad idea to kick off with these saddles, the posts right down in the ground, and then we'll come up from that if needs be. Now in the meantime, I'll just put that there for now. Get me a spring. Go underneath the wire. Underneath, maybe. under, I don't really mind. I think anything, so long as I can get it on, will do right now. It's quite a pull, but there you go. It's got that. Well, it means I don't have to hold it anymore, that's the main thing. Okay. Let's pull this one across. It's difficult to get a grip on a piece of stainless steel wire. There you go. Actually that, am I imagining something here? That's not very good, is it? Thank you. Are you serious? Isn't it? Why isn't it like that? How bizarre. Is it too far down? Surely not. Rubbish. It's too far into the foam. Well, that's not going to bode well for our setup then, is it? Alright, that's quite cool. Yeah. Okay, so no, obviously it's got no string pressure going the other way, so that's not helping things. Just sit on there for a minute. That's bizarre. That is very odd. That doesn't comfortably fit on there. I have to go that way, and it doesn't want to go that way. How odd. I don't like that. Right, let's not go to the outside because it doesn't like that spacing. Let's go to the inside. In all cases, and let's go over the top of that, down the side. There's got to be enough room to go down there, please. Thank you. That's weird. That's diagonal. So the claw doesn't line up with that. In fact, that lines up better that way. That is wrong. What's going on here? Right, well, it's going to have to do. That's in place, it can't go any further. The only way it can go is that way, but even that way, it doesn't want to go that way. Blimey. Oddly misaligned. Oddly misaligned. Wow. And the bottom of the post just comes through into a little gap there. You can see it, touch it. Right, so that doesn't really want to go there. That doesn't really want to go there. It's an odd little arrangement. You put them side by side and they just look like they're going in the wrong direction. We'll do that just for OCD's sake. They are 3 in a line, but not very in a line. Anyway, okay. So, now the fun part starts. Actually, we haven't got any nut slots to cut, so You never know, we might get away with the strings being the actual strings, we don't know. But we want 9s, right? 9's right. 9's right. 9's right. I suppose it would make sense to check first, because I've got loads of 10s. It's a Strat, you want 9s. Let me do a quick check, might as well, eh? So I'm still waiting. Oh, I better turn this off. I'm still waiting. Sorry, let me just check. See what gauge strings, but for the time being I'm putting 10s on. I don't have an answer yet. I'm putting 10s on. Just switch this to airplane mode, thank you. Putting 10s on just to do the fret leveling if any is necessary, and actually it doesn't really matter, because all that will happen is we may adjust the neck relief and the playing action afterwards if required. Okay, so meantime I have got some strings on, and I'm just going through with my little tuner, tuning until we reach equilibrium. This takes a while, let me just support this. Okay, to my guesstimate for first fret action was actually pretty good. We can unloosen it, we can loosen it off, take it down a little bit. Last fret action currently is probably too low. Now we've reached equilibrium. Well, I don't know, let's have a look. Millimeters, just about 1.4. A little high on the top side. So now I'm going to do the unforgivable. I'm going to gently tighten that in a small amount. Just look how this is on. The light is terrible. That's in the, that's in the, okay, they're both in the mark, on the mark. Oops. this is still moving around, but partly not helped by the fact that I didn't really wind these on terribly well, so some of these are sort of half out, half off. So it might take a little while to stabilise, if at all. Oh, yeah, see, like that. It isn't going to stabilise at all. Oh, Christ. How many times am I going to do this? That break, or did that just fall apart, or just come out? Now, let's see if I can unwind enough of it to get it on there. So this is a pain you have to go through usually with it's bad enough with what do you call these things, you know, that thing, Floyd Rose. Bad enough with a Floyd Rose, but it's even worse with one that's left-handed. So I'm going to try and fool it by pressing down the tremolo first and pushing this in. Come on, you can do it. You can do it. You can do it. I don't know if it will work, frankly. The idea of putting a little stump of string in front of a metal block and hoping that it will lock it in place is mad. We may never get to equilibrium. This tuner is not playing ball. Now technically, let's say we had that stable tuning. Let's just lock this down for a minute and see what we've got. Let's see if we can micro tune it. So to do any fret leveling, well, we've got to get to the action we want, which with a tremolo obviously includes setting the floating tremolo into fully floating mode, and then once we've got that down, then we can adjust the action at the bridge, and then we can do any fret leveling required. But first of all, we're going to lock this down, and then we're going to see probably a bit of movement in the tuning, which we'd expect. We're going to try and tune it with micro tuners. A. Right, I'm just making that up because I can hear it by ear. Right, so there we have the thing tuned unbalanced and floating. Obviously the strings aren't fully stretched out, or they're old anyway, so who knows where it will go over time, but that theoretically should be pretty stable in tuning if we'd gone through, if there were new strings and we'd stretched them all out. So the issue here now is, let's just double check the first fret action, because I think it's close to where I'd want it, which is really good considering it was a guesstimate to begin with. It's interesting. So, okay, that's fine, do it from that side. Right, so what we've got is, we've got an action that I'd like to take down a little bit there, but we're going to have to take the locking part off again to take care of that. Now we've got a millimeters action at the last fret there. This one's tiny bit high, so I would still want to go down with this one, whilst contravening the rules and regulations. Am I imagining this? No, it's got to be down. Down is in. Right. Down is in. There we go, we're on one. Right, so the issue now is regarding the first fret. We'll change that in a minute. So we've got an indication there's a bit of a high fret somewhere in there, but first thing I want to just check again is the neck relief, and it's very, very, oh no, it's not minor, it's there. Actually, it's okay. I took some out. It was originally too bowed. So anyway, you can hear now that I've got high fret here. Okay, so we need some fret leveling here. Now I'm going to do something. I'll do something slightly unorthodox here. Am I? Let's try and see if I can mark up these frets without going anywhere near the wood. This is going to be a little bit tricky. It might take a while. I want a guide, but I really don't want to get any. I don't want any marker down the side of these frets, because that usually spills over when you come to clean it off. It's all too easy to spill over, so this is a little bit more careful marking up, so it will take a little while. Now yes, we would be better off with the strings off, but unfortunately I don't quite have that luxury at the moment because of the way around we've had to do things here. So I'm just trying to keep the top part of the fret coloured in, and in a minute, once I've got this, I'll do the fret leveling, then I'm going to leave this till later, and because I've got to go into town, dispatch one parcel. I've got another one going out by parcel force, hopefully already just gone. That one's going out to Tim. That's the Epiphone AFD Paradise or slash thing, AFD Paradise slash, whatever they call it. It's got lots of names. That's going back home. I won't be there till Tuesday probably. And then Rod's Rally GL300 is going back to him, and interestingly it's been here for 3 months or more, and I ended up not actually doing anything to it other than taking a good look at it for him, but I think new baby and other pressures have led him to kind of give up on the idea of putting new pickups in it, which is fine. So it's just going back to him in its original packaging as it came. Which was pretty good, because actually it was in superb condition. It was one of those Rally GL300s that can barely find any reason to do any alterations on it. I think even with a plastic nut it was pretty much spot on to play, so it wouldn't have required anything. It was just, we were just holding on to see whether he wanted some upgraded pickups, but time and family life I think has intervened. So back it goes. Right, so here I have time to do a fret level on this. Same principle, left hand or right hand, no big difference at all. Now, you know, these aren't massively jumbo frets, but the principle is the same. We're going to level them as if it was a right-hander, and because it doesn't have a massive amount of fret metal built in, we're obviously just going to be very careful about the degree to which it's we adjust it, whether we level it. So we're going to keep it to an absolute minimum just to make it sure it plays. So we'll check each note, or each string's worth of notes as we go. And crapo. Right, now I'm going to do something now. I'm going to take off the locking nut, because now I don't care about the tuning, the exact tuning. What I care about is being able to move the strings out of the way to do this. So I'll take that one off first, move that string out of the way. It also, right, that's overloaded something else, and that popped out of there. Yeah, it's not locked. Blast it. That's so annoying. It's the G. Have we got any more room? I think it's bent already, and I think it's just popped where it's bent, and that's one of the downsides of this. You're going to get things breaking on old strings, but hey, we try and save material. Alright, let's put an angle in that. Let's snip off the little hook. Let's unwind it off the main mast. Sorry, I'm getting all nautical. I need to undo these. So that one's no good. Try and free up a bit more wire and get it back on for the time being, just to do the fret leveling. And we will have to try and balance the tuning up roughly again. It doesn't have to be exact, but we've got to get close enough to make it work. Right, now can I reach this? First of all, put that under there. Can I get the one I need? Thank you. Undo the one that's broken, which is the high G, the G. And get this little bent over thing in the... Oh, blimey, we are short on wire. Come on, a bit more. Free me up a bit more, please. It's pretty wound on that actually, so I do have some more slack to play with, thankfully. We should be able to get that under. Get that in there, get in there, get in there. Full on tighten up. You can do it, come on, you can do it. Well, that just sort of slowed things down a bit. Let's just put this back on a minute. In order to, we will now resume tuning. What I'll do is, while I'm at it now, since we've got these undone, I can now take down, drop the playing action a tiny bit, which is what we also wanted to do. But to do that, I really did want to just loosen this off, and this, followed by the small adjustment down, followed by tighten back up. It's very nice and low. Just a guess, I don't know this system very well, so just trying it out. Now I'll get back on the tuner again, I'm afraid. We just need to get this to tune now for the purpose of leveling. Now that will do for the purpose of fret leveling. So here we are, back at where we wanted to be. yes, so now we wanted to move this off to one side. Just spread the string out the way, and then we're just going to gently fret level. Now I wouldn't be at all surprised to find an extremely high fret right in the middle, 10th in fact. That's where we were getting the problem, and lo and behold, we've got a hugely high fret there and one there as well. So that's that. Now I'm going to do the same thing with the next one. And I'll try the first two strings, see how they play. Again, I'm expecting that to be a flat, I mean a high spot in the middle there, which we're seeing still. Then just quickly check out these. It's not fret buzz, by the way. It's something else in this whole system buzzing around the what do you call it, Floyd Rose. So we'll need to tighten all that down and check it again at the end. But it's the way it goes when you're working with Floyd Rose, which has different components which will all tend towards buzzing if you haven't got them shut down. There's lots of opportunity to get buzz in the system. Okay. Two high frets there and there, really. Significantly high. So with this, as you can tell, I'm not really bothering too much with the exact tuning on this. It's particularly because it's so difficult with a Floyd Rose. We've got it to approximate tuning, and we're going with that, doing the best we can. It only matters insofar as it bends the neck close to the amount that the guitar will be under load. Now, if Rich comes back and wants to go with 9s on this, then all that will happen is the tremolo will go to a slightly different place, and we'll possibly take a little bit of stiffness out of the relief. That will be the main thing. We've got quite a high fret right here. We've taken care of it. Yeah, a lot of sideways movement on those teeth at this end, which is quite unusual. It's not a bad setup, and I do like that little adjuster screws on the other side. I'm very pleased with those. Well, this end. If I could just find something like that, I might even convert other guitars to it or build it in. Yes. To have that sort of control without having to spend too long working with bone would be quite nice, although I like that bone's quite nice, but a locking nut is not a bad thing. But then you really do tend to then need the micro tuners at the other end. You can see them out of dust. All good. And the last one, you can see that two areas really where it's been high frets. Now this has got a fairly stable relief curve all the way across the radius, so I had to adjust the banana bar at all. Now if you remember, this one was choking a bit up here on the 10th fret as well, so I'm pretty confident that this will take care of that. Yeah, you can see it right there, flat spot. Thank you. Now don't worry about the tuning because it's going to be way off. Okay, that's good, and first fret action is as good as I'm going to get it without constantly redoing and undoing that, but it's nice and low, so I'm happy with that. So there we have it. Done. Now what we can do is remove all of these stringers and get into the polishing stage, but I'll do that later on. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to slack that off for now, switch off, come back to it later. Good afternoon. Right, it's suddenly all the time's gone by and it's time to get on with this. So what did we do? We did the pickup, done. We've done fret leveling, done. Now we need to remove the strings, let these flop back in place. Confirmed with Rich that he wants 10s, which we'll do, and then we'll get this all polished out, which will take about half an hour of hard work. It's all funny left-handed, everything's funny left-handed, it's just different. Same principles. The only downside of doing left-handed setups, as I've said before, is that I don't get to enjoy trying the guitar out really, because it's all a bit yeah, I can't play it and enjoy the playing bit. But there you go, it's not such a bad thing, and I'm pleased that evidence or the results have shown that if you stick to the process that I do, or if I stick to the process that I do, then I always... What happened there? That's interesting. They moved. That's what was going on. Oh, okay. That's something I didn't do. I didn't lock those down again. Never mind. I'll be certain to do that next time. Yeah, so you follow the basics and it will work out. That's my advice. And having done many now, it turns out to be the case, and it's pretty straightforward. You just have to trust the experience that you build up in doing right-handed, or if you're the other way around, left-handed setups. Right, out you come. Right, all of these into the bin. Now, like I've mentioned, I forgot to adjust or lock. Well, I thought I did lock these down, but that's a bit worrying. That is a bit worrying. I'm pretty certain I locked these down, but they've moved off on their own free will. Yeah, I don't like that. I'm pretty certain I locked those down. Let's try it again. I do feel like they've been moved. Shouldn't happen. Okay. They're not that easy to adjust, these things. It's a bit crappy. I'm putting these in an arbitrary position now because I don't really have the means to adjust them. God, I don't like these at all. I'm going to do this without that. It's kind of nigh on impossible. I have to just leave it go back there. So I'm looking to position the next group of 3 back somewhat. Lots of shiny stuff in your face when you're doing this. It's quite hard to see what's going on. Right, this is at the, see, that's at the end of that, so we need to switch screw holes. Push forward, is that about right? Probably. And then this one needs to, blimey, hard to do. I might get a different thingy out, hex key, see if I can get these to stay in place next time. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, back a bit, back a bit, back a bit. Yep, okay. Right, sorry, that was a bit of a distraction. So I'm going to get me a dirty rag of some kind. This one. I just want to try and get rid of the dust first of all off there, and then I'm going to use my marker pen again to reshape these frets. I'm going to do the same thing again here, try and use a little less than normally I would use. Normally I put on a great big soggy marker pen, but I don't try and get as little as possible down the sides of these frets. It's actually quite hard to do. But then what I'll do is I'll make sure that whatever happens, I'm going to mask off the fingerboard before I do anything with any solvent to get rid of this pen, because I don't want it washing off onto the maple. So I'm trying to minimize that in this way by just drawing only on the top if I can get away with it, and then masking off the fingerboard before I do any solvent cleaning. My stomach's rumbling because I'm hungry. Terrible routine. I don't eat during the day, only once during the day or something. Too busy, too lazy. Anyway, let's do medium frets. Okay, they're not massively high frets anyway, so I'm just keeping an eye on the thin black line we're aiming for down the top of the pickup. Now pickup, you know, the fret is the word. And I don't really expect to have to do hardly any rounding off until we get down to these ones, where I can see it's flattened off a fair bit. That's where we had a really high spot, so it takes a bit more work at that point. And some of these now will also require right on the edges there. So that one's not seated correctly in the middle, those are not correct, that's not correctly seated at the edges. That's what this process takes care of, which is just as well. Right, so just had Hugh come over to pick up his Cosmos and his Westone Raider, and then tomorrow I'm heading off to Wadebridge to visit Malcolm, and at the same time pick up John's guitar. He left it over at Malcolm's, mutual friends kind of thing. Oh my god, those magnets are tough. Oh, hellfire. Neighbour is having a meltdown. Okay, so I'm going to rub off the dust now, having done that. Next stage will be to mask it off now. So I'll start this up and then I'll go off camera. It's a bit long-winded and boring. So aim to protect the whole fingerboard and then once I've done that off camera, what I'll do is I'll sand out these frets with a variety of different grits, and Rich has seen this process before, and so have many other people. And once that's done, then I'm going to restring with the new 10s, and I'll get 10s, no, I'll get 10s, restring the 10s, and then stretch them out really thoroughly. The thing about stretching anyway is the key to tuning stability, that and your nut slots, but when you've got a Floyd Rose, stretching becomes really critical as well, because you want to have it all completely stretched out before you lock everything off and leave yourself with only the micro tuners to use. If you've got slack tuning instability in there, then you're going to constantly be running out of adjustment room, slacking it off down there, which weakens the strings, tuning again over there, which requires balancing everything, and then going back and locking it off, having reset your micro adjusters. So it gets to be a right old pain. So not worth leaving it, so it's definitely worth getting the stretching done thoroughly. Right, I'm going to get tidy up a little bit and get a load of a load of tape rustled up and do the sanding off camera, and I'll see you back in a minute when it's done. Okay, just listening to debate on the radio while I was polishing those frets about vaping versus smoking, and how some people are still don't seem to want to quote unquote allow people to vape in public, because the jury's out on whether it's harmful to others, or even actually apparently whether or not it's harmful full stop. But I tell you what, if it had been around in my day when I smoked, I would have used it without question. Horrible thing to be really trapped in that addiction of that filthy, stinking, slow suicide thing that we call smoking. But there wasn't in my day. Well, a lot of the time there was nothing but willpower, and then there was gum, and a bit later on those nicotine lozenges, which turned out to be actually quite the best of the lot as far as I was concerned. But having gone on to them, then you kind of realise that you become addicted to them, and eventually you've got to figure out some way of quitting those as well. It's all, this stores up trouble for later. It's the nature of addiction. Right, now with these I'm going to restring this. Now I don't like doing what some people like doing, which is to put a ball end of the string up this end. So I don't believe there's any way of, no, there is no way. Oh look, I've just lost one of these little things. Brilliant. Let's put that back in. That's the one thing you have to watch out for. If you turn your guitar upside down, those little blocks in the saddle will drop out. Anyway, so yeah, I'm looking to cut the ends off here, because I don't want the little ball ends sticking out. So I'm going to cut the ends off, and up to and including the ball part. And then we're going to go in there like this, and there like this. What I really need to do is to lift this up using that, and then with my thingamy make sure this is tied up. No, it's the wrong one. Oh. There and there. That seems to be a bit wonky. Not thrilled with that. Still, we'll see. I'll do it with, get all the strings in, and then I'll get another Allen key out and give an extra yank on all of these to make sure they really are tight. Then we also have to use the same hex key to ensure that all the other bits, the saddles themselves, are not going to drag forward when we put the strings under load, because that seems to have been, may have been what happened last time. So it's always a funny thing when you're doing these things and you have chrome. It always sort of reflects a load of light, and it can be quite difficult to get things done because you're getting dazzled by this chrome. So what I'm doing is, as I'm putting on these little bits of string, bending them, I'm bending a little angle into them so that they go into the hole with an angle already bent. So push them in till they hit the ground, and then try and press down on them like that, and leave them sitting there. Maybe a little harder with the thin string, in which case I will probably try and make sure this one's fixed in first, and then the third string of all. There we go. Right, now while I'm at it, let's get the other Allen key. See if we can get one the right size. Not too bad. So while we can, if we can find the right one. No, don't tell me. Hey, got everything except that size. Right, this one, it has to be this one. There can be no doubt. No, that's some. Well, maybe. Is that rounded? That's rounded off, isn't it? Not great. So that's the right size, only it's slightly rounded. And so I have nothing else. I do have one more down here, I think. No, maybe, no. No, it's just this one. God blimey, it's really not that easy. I'll revert back to this because at least I can get a grip on it. Get a far better grip actually. Right, onto there. Now we have the challenge of these staying in the same place. I need them to stay in the same place for intonation's sake. Well, and I say intonation, but it's a guessed at intonation, so we don't even know if it's going to work really. So let's see. Back one, wrap it on, over the top, down, up, and under. Okay. There we are. Very difficult left-handed, I can promise you. Well, this bit is anyway. So as far as intonation is concerned, I started off with a guess, because that's all I can do, which is the downside of this sort of setup. It's not great actually, but if we find that it has to be moved, then we have to pretty much slack everything off and remove everything by hand, and then tighten it down again and try it all again. So it's not a brilliant system. There are a few that are, and really the Strat bridge is about the simplest thing to intonate. Leo Fender, of course, got that right as well. As with so much else. Good so far, fingers crossed, touch wood and all that. Okay, so we've altered the nut height as well, so that should be good. Oh, this is a bit of an odd one, stiffens up at certain points, don't know why. Okay, so now we have all of the strings on. What we're going to need to do is to stretch them out first before we do anything else. So stretching, oh God, it's going to come out, isn't it? Oh dear. Right, I don't like how that works. You know what happened there? That jumped forward. So, okay, so that, yeah, that jumped forward, so I'm going to have to physically drag that back, undo it. So I think I may have discovered a fundamental flaw in this guitar. Right, I can't really test anything. Right, okay, let's just get the stretch out first. So what I suspected has happened, and that is under any loading these saddles jump forward, which means intonation may be impossible. Not ideal. Now, I'm not really going to be able to tell this. If I can just get one intonated correctly, then that would be fine. Well, it would be a start point from which I can stagger the others visually and get somewhere. But the question of whether they're going to stay in place or not is anyone's guess. That's jumped forward as well. Oh, what crap this is. I think this could be your fundamental fatal flaw, Rich. This is where it could be a no-go. These things are popping forward no matter what I do with the with these screws here. They're just choosing to bang forward whenever it suits them under pressure. So I'm going to have to, I don't know whether we've got some sort of locking thing that might work or not. I don't think so. Okay, so it's a bit of a flaw. Let's just keep going with the stretching for a minute. I'll try and work this out. It's not helping that the sponge at the moment is pushing forward on those little, each of those individual saddles, so that will be in part encouraging them to pop forward, but it's not the only thing. The string seems to make it want to happen. So let's see how far I can get. Where's the tuner? See if I can get anywhere close. And then, so let's try. Let me try and get one. Right, I want that slack for a minute. Really slack. And I want to push this back to a place. Doesn't want to go. To a place where I can then tie it down for its start point. Oh god, this doesn't want to do it. Right, let's do that in line with that. Of course you can't get to either side of it because of the damn strings in the way. Right, let's call that a start point, and we're not touching anything at the back there, and it should, we should find a way of being able to tighten this up, right, with a decent Allen key. Let's try and lock this one really tightly down, and there's nothing currently pressing on it. So this theoretically should allow me to tighten it up to in tune. It doesn't want to do that because of course everything's slack. Okay, so that's too short, just as a quick guess. Right, now before I overstress these strings too far, I'm going to unhook this and push this back. According to that, that's too short, so we want to go further back on this to even begin. I'm doing my best to guess, because if we can get a start point, then we may be able to work off that. Right. Try this one as well. I'm using the wrong thing, really. I should be using a different tuner for this, but let's try and get this out the way and done up. this out of the way, try and right. So if that is roughly in place, which it's trying to tell me it is, the others, as long as they stay there, should be similarly in place. See, that one just desperately wants to jump forward. So they are being dragged forward by the load, which you kind of sort of come to expect, but it's not good because we are struggling to control it. You can see how crude this is, and that's jumping forward without anything pressing on it from behind, so it's not like it really should be able to stay where you put it. Let's try and tighten up. Is that even done up? Oh god, what junk. That's stripped already. Oh god, Rich, you are on a loser here, I'm afraid. Absolute cack. Oh shite. I've actually got a spare one of these which will probably even work better than this one, funnily enough, but that is not doing it. What absolute garbage. Will that go in there? Will it? Hell. Will that go in there? Whose clever idea was this? Seriously. Oh yeah, we'll just make up a system that you can't actually use to intonate. Right. Maybe this will just maybe this will stay put. If this just, I mean, if this pops forward now, then we're stuffed really. There's no more we can do to keep this thing working. I think it's not sticking on that back one, so I'm not very confident with that. What's wrong with this tuner? Does it even work? What's wrong with it? Okay, that's those three. Let's trust these three are in the right sort of place. They have to be. Let's lock them down. That's as good as we're going to get. try and stretch a bit more. So you can tell I'm not chuffed with the construction, and that's the weakness of the Chinese bridge. It's not in the blade in my experience, or the posts. It's in the little grub screws where you've got them that do fiddly little things badly. So we shall have to see whether this holds out or whether it's going to give up the ghost. Give some power, would you? So what we're doing is we're just hoping this thing's going to work its way to the work its way to equilibrium. That's the aim, and then we can lock it down, and then we can fine tune it and double check the action. This thing won't stay on long enough. What the... let me just... what stupid design is this? Actually stick up out the way. Alright. That's better. It's not perfect. Yeah. Hellfire. So that's actually bizarre. Okay, we don't have we don't have, is it undersprung? Because that's actually not high enough, or not coming off the top of the saddle correctly. So I suppose I'll have to plug in my damn thing, which I don't want to have to do because it takes up all the room up here. Wasn't a good idea. I should have stuck to the battery operated affair. Really should, because now I'm squeezed for space. Right, maybe we're an octave out or something. Might well be the case by now, using a crappy little tuner. Thank you. See, that can't, it's not even sitting straight. Right, let me have a closer look at this. Something not right here. Hold on. Okay, well, I've kind of run to some sort of understanding here that these are too long, and they go through there, and they poke out the other end, and they push away. They compress the shim underneath, but they don't squeeze the lock the thing down. They're too long. Just, I don't know. I take it back. You know, I was sort of singing the praises of those Chinese manufacturers, but that's what you get. You get these things that are too long. I've got some other of those things somewhere else. Let me just have a look and see if there's anything I can use from elsewhere. These might be a bit shorter. Let's just do a check. It might be exactly the same actually, but probably no, maybe a little bit shorter. Let's see if this will lock it down. That's a fundamental flaw, right? Because what I was getting was, hear the creaking. Strings going through the nut, right? Even with this string tensioner on, strings are going through the nut. Why were they going through the nut? Because they're not being locked in place. Why? Because these are too long and that's not thick enough, so it's not pressing them down. Now I'm going to now put on a shorter one and attempt to see how that goes. And will we cure? I don't even know what I've got the tuning at now. Right now I don't really care. Do I? Yeah, I do care. Hang on, come on. Let's get with it. Get with the program. I need to get this thing tuned and done. But that's a little tiny detail. It was driving me mad for starters. That's without not being able to get the thing in working at this end. Let's quit that. Let's come back. Let's do that again. Come on. Forget the creaks a minute. Stop it. Right, let's leave that there. Let's lock these off and let's switch all these to shorter ones, right? Get rid of these long thins out of the way. Things. Let's see if we can actually stabilise this tuning without creaking noises. Because basically what was happening is it was still running through, wasn't locking down, which is a bit pointless really. So you do the tremolo and it was going out of tune and it was creaking at the same time. So let's try a more civilised locking nut. Silly bastards, I tell you. That feels better. No creaking. I need to retune that. Right, well the point is proven that that does lock the things properly, and they weren't working before with those longer screws, so that's a piece of crap from China. But you wouldn't know unless you'd done it before, but you'd never actually be able to play that. That's first rule number one. So let's get this roughly in tune now, and then lock it down. See if we can keep it stable for a while. I'm unlocked, aren't I? Now I am. Horrible tuners. Lock that down, tune it with micro tuners now. Horrible tremolo. It's not returning to tune very well at all. Got loads of tension on it. Oh, it should be. I don't like this, mate. Horrible, really horrible. Not at all encouraging, I'm afraid. I'm just wondering whether I've got some things. Where were they living? Got a couple of spare ones of these. I don't need enough of that one. Solve the problem. It's probably, oh shit, it's a right-hander one. Doesn't make any difference. Yes, it does. It's black and it's right-handed. There's nothing I can do to improve it. I did order a left-hand one once and don't think I ever got it. Right. Where's the other one live? Probably there. Is that left-hander or it's probably right-hander as well? Trying to explode rows. Horrible feeling it's not going to work. Same kind of basic make as those. It's black and it's right-handed. This is awful. I don't like it. It's going to play me mighty havoc. I'm going to leave it for now because it's doing things I don't like. Right, put it on hold. I've got to go and do some things. Come back to it. Just going to check something on the back here, which is tightness of these, or the fit of these. It's a bit creaky. I really don't like. So it's going to cost me a lot of time to figure out why this thing is so poor. I will stop in a minute, but I have got to go and do things. At least we solved one problem, so that means I'll take these three little black screws and throw them away. I'll put them there, at least we can compare them in size, but that's crap. We ain't going nowhere. Horrible creaking from hell. I hate the way this is working. It's not returning. Man. Okay, so basically this thing is not rocking nicely on its what's it, so I am not liking it. Let's just have a look. Let's see. Why is it so crap? Doesn't even look straight when it's on there. It's not straight on the, well, the route isn't straight by the looks of it. So first of all, these are all different heights, courtesy of, what's it courtesy of? The tuning. That's just junk as well. So as you tune, so we all start outwards. They don't all start at the same place. That's quite bizarre as well. So let's say we start a fair bit out. Right. The first thing is they're not all exactly level. That's the thing. And then when you tune one, what happens is that bridge tilts back, which is cool. But it's not far enough. And then when you push these back, they tend to fold up, which is not what we want. So flatten those off. And I say, if you tighten one up now, it pushes that one way down below all the others. And it's supposed to pivot around this front edge. That's cool, but they didn't seem to line up earlier on. So there's our little pivoty thing. The thing that bothers me straight away is that these don't even line up from the outset. Right, so you get one of these on, and they don't go in a straight line. It goes basically off to one side like that. That of its own feels wrong. Okay, so we get one there, and let's put one there, and if we go in parallel, theoretically parallel, then it's going to go to there. And that's not what you want, because that's pushed it out. Seriously. It's not helpful. So something about this is not, I'm not feeling the love for. What in the hell is that? That I do not understand. Something's just fallen out of here. That's very odd. Something has just fallen out of this cavity, and it's nothing that we need. Oh lordy. Seriously, this is a horrible experience. So something, half a screw just came out of there, something that's sheared off previously. So what on earth that is anyone's guess. Let's put these two on here like this for a minute and examine what in the Lord's name was that. Sheared off, cut, physically cut with clippers. So I don't even know if is that something that's been in the way of things, or see, that doesn't even sit right, does it? Well, it will when it's theoretically when it's up, but let's just try it with two. We should be able to do this on two. Doesn't help that they're grotty tuners as well. Sorry to say. Come on. Forget the pinging, we can live with that. such a grinding. I will finish in a minute. Let's just try this 1 second with one less spring. Never likes being turned off and shut down on. So that's 2 springs pulling, and that's fairly high up. Stick 3 springs in it. That's surprising because we were quite a long way in to begin with. No, that's not true. We were out on the springs to begin with, on the screws. Okay. Ugh. Horrible. It's truly horrible. So that's 3 springs and the thing right in, and that's a long way up. Don't want it there. So we go 4, and then we were too far down. Horrible. I'm hating every minute of this. Now that's because it's come up off its saddle and it's basically not got any brake angle, which is what we can't have. So we have to start off with more, I guess we have to have more spring action in there, which is a bit nuts really. So I've already done that once. moving? Is this these saddles moving? So that one spring has sent it all over the place. I can't stand it. It's horrible. It's absolutely horrible. The tuners are dreadful. And for some reason it just will not. Watch this, this will go totally AWOL. This is costing me too much time. I'm going to stop. I think. Hello there. Well, look, just a quick recap on this. I've had this apart. I've moved the claw across to a position where at least the springs are in a straight line, although they're slightly uneven. We could probably even that up better with one slap bang in the middle rather than on the end. But apart from that, I don't think that, I mean, that evens the pull on the tremolo. Now the problem I think you'll still see is even if we tune it up right now, my worry is, if I can just get this thing running, right, come on, slow, there's our tuner. So there's our tremolo sort of done up. Now first of all, this bar here, this joint here is loose. I don't even know if that's doable uppable. What I've done on this is I've also changed out these pivot points for ones off my unit or spare unit, one of these Chinese ones. Obviously very low quality thing is. Now somewhere in there is, I guess, there's a, if you do it up from maybe the back, is it? Anyway, so here's a right-handed version of the same thing. Now realistically, that, I don't know about the space, would it fit somewhere? Maybe, might even be room for it to fit together, for all I know. Could even use a right-handed one. That would be a bit odd, wouldn't it? Tremolo above. Anyway, so look, the point is we got it. So let's just take a note like E, flat, sharp, flat, sharp. Lock down at that end. But also with this thing, these saddles are, because when you stagger them back, they seem to push upwards. Now I don't know if it does it on this thing. I'm going to have a quick look. But it's if you undo wrong one. Okay, if you undo one of these saddles, for example, see how when that goes backwards, it pushes up, right? Now that raises the thing. It doesn't, or it wants to push up. So I don't know how you. I guess you have to try and push it back. You loosen it off and push it back on. Because a couple of these I don't think are the right, are in the right place. So if we were to take this off, what's going to happen is it's going to ping forward. So we can't adjust any of these with this stuff done up as it is. So we have to undo everything. Free movement of strings. One of the EU's core pillars. Right now, you can hear that going through the nut there. It's terrible. By the way, that's clicking because I've disconnected the ground lead at the back. So what I want to do, ideally, if I take one of these, this one, and slack it off. Let's say I want to get this undone, and I want to push it to where it needs to be, okay, which is back here, but I don't want it sticking up in the air. So somehow I have to be able to push this thing. So I need it completely slacked off. I need to be able to push it to where I want it, hold it flat, and get it done up. Now, if I don't do it up enough, it'll push forward. So let's say that isn't good on that one. Let's push that forward a bit. Let's pretend that's where I need it to be. And screw it down. Now, I want this to stay in place. That's the first thing. So I do need a second opinion on the Allen key, because if I don't, they'll come undone and pop forward under the load of the string. Now this is never going to be right because it's floating. Now, just out of interest, let's try and get this other one flat as well. So I'm trying to get everything flat where I want it to be. So I'll loosen it off, rolls around, you can see, pull it back to where I want it, press it down, do it up as hard as I can do it, and hope that it stays in that place. Now the third one looks relatively high, so I'm going to do the same with that one. By the way, these tuners are appalling, so really I should be I should be swapping these over as we speak. Tuners, because I have a set of locking tuners, which just conveniently will go on this guitar. Now, the worst comes to the worst, we're going to just have to lock off this tremolo. But I'm not a believer in. I don't believe automatically that these Chinese tuners tremolos don't work. However, although it's proving to be a bit like that right now, here we have some nice black tuners. So let's see if I can change them off one by one. I don't know if I'll be able to. Tell you what, why don't we just slack this off with some foam. It doesn't put everything too tight. Also have to do up this tremolo arm, which is garbage. Right, you rest there, my friend. Ah, sorry. Take this. These are terrible tuners. That is one thing that has not made any of this at all easy. So let's see if I can relieve this of this tuner to begin with and replace it, trusting that it will be the same size. Okay, this is held on by a small screw, which is fine. A small driver. So yeah, I've put a piece of the posts from my tuner, no, my tremolo across onto this, so we shall see if that does any good. I don't think it is by the sounds of it. So what I'm at it, let's take all of these ragged holes. And we can change them over one by one. I don't want to give up and lock this thing down. I obviously will do if we have to. It's on the floor. Yeah, no, it's a shame. I don't believe in principle that they're always crap, but this one seems to be putting up a fight, shall we say. Okay, so let's put on one of these. Straight in, that's good. A bit of a sort of fiddly way around. It's better go take all of them off the front. Boing, boing. Will we get this to pull through? Let's try. Oh my god, already tightened strings are an absolute pain in the what's it? Couldn't imagine. Right, there we go. Pull on, stick on, and you're kind of rotating a bit, but that's a million times better. Right, why don't I just help this along by tapping this onto here. I guess I'm going to end up losing a whole set of strings on this, whichever way we cut or slice it. So I'm going to take all of these off. I can get this thing in there. They really were taking forever to turn or to bite, so these tuners were ragged in terms of how they worked. Oh, they get stiff and just grungy. put the screws in at the end. Still on. Oh, one string. Already changed, I should say. Cool sound. These are much better quality. Although they don't quite cover, the washer doesn't cover the same amount of ground. Straighten them up a bit for now. So I guess the problem with these sorts of things are, it looks good buying, you know, a cool custom made patterned guitar from China, but you know, if you were not a technical sort of person, you'd give up pretty quickly on this, and it wouldn't stay in tune or any of the things it's supposed to do, so it would be pretty disappointing. I mean, the point is, you know, Rich hasn't paid a fortune for it, so he knows what he's getting. But if you were hoping for something you could go out and gig with straight away, it wouldn't work. Very fiddly doing this with strings still on and whatnot, but there isn't an easy way to take all this off, especially when you still need the strings on there to test things out and try and make this damn thing work. Okay, just tighten these up a little bit. Get the strings on to start with. Hard work. Lock it on. Come on. Lock it on. This, get there in a minute, and we'll see if this makes trying to get this to play any easier. feeling I still may have to try and press down some of those things there, but it's pretty naff the way they pop up. Come on, through you go. Come on, please. Thank you. Right, we are all attached, ladies and gentlemen. Easier to tune. God, those other tunes were terrible. That's not the tuner, that's a string pulling over the nut. We'll do that until we lock it off. Right, now we've got to try and balance it up again. Seemed quite straightforward for once. Lock that off. Yeah, just about. Right, locked off. Strings roughly about level, kind of. That one's still higher. God, it's so annoying. That one's got to be pressed down, which means I've got to undo this one. Just going to upset everything. Position it in place, but press it down in the middle. Let's just lock this off for a minute. We'll tune it up with these. Okay, now let's imagine we're... 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 Okay, now let's imagine we're watch the E flat sharp. You can get it back to pitch. Try as I might, it's not playing. Okay, well, at least you know, with those tuners on, it will play better when it's locked down. I've done what I think to be my utmost with this, I'm afraid. We can switch over these again, I guess, one more time. It's not a great outcome, I'm afraid. What we'll have to do is loosen off all of these, and we want to basically block this off in a fixed position, and that basically means putting a piece of wood behind here in this carefully fitted piece of wood. You never know, we may have something that pretty much works almost spot on. Not far off actually. If we press it down to there, that's locked, but it's a little bit, well, it doesn't really matter actually if it's sitting back. Gives you a better brake angle actually over there. Okay, that's just the end bits. Okay, so you still, the thing about this, you still can tune with your what's it tuners here, but I've put it now into locked position, so it's not going to go anywhere. Let me put this back on. Just put it back on here. Box falling out because I pressed down too hard on there. If you press down, you can release the block really if you press hard on there, but this isn't the final thing, but just to give you an example then, if we were to now lock this off and fine tune with our fine tuners, which is pretty good. zero height down here. Forgot to change that bit. The thing is, I'm going to have to make a block and get it glued to, or not glued exactly, but fixed to the underside to make sure it doesn't fall out, because you need to be able to move things without it falling out. So I guess while I'm there, I'm also going to need to replace these with mine. Yours, the chrome ones. Well, there you are. Sorry about that. 1 mil less than. Okay, well in principle that's where we're going to probably have to stop, but the bit that matters here is that's blocking it now, but if you press down on that, then it will release the block, which you don't want to do. So you could try and block it the other way, or you could just stick that to a bit of sticky tape and double side it, and then you get it to sit against that. It's a bit one-sided here, so but the point is it will always tend to fall out unless it's screwed in or glued in or something. Then I mean, I could just leave it like that, or I'll probably find another piece that maybe slightly better. Always have an exotic piece of whinge or wingy or whatever people like to call it, and wherever it locks to, wherever it locks, you will get the thing come back up. So for example, if we just wanted to drop this out, can I do it this way? Oh no, I have to go that way to drop it out, push it back. Okay. So yeah, I suppose this is actually thick enough. I'll use this piece, or I'll cut another one. But this one is just about to size actually. If you see. That will allow it to sit in there, and then obviously we'll get different tuning again now because we've moved things around. So that really won't come into play anymore, and then we just set the action depending on that. But I think I don't really mind. In fact, I'll just leave the black ones in there, to be honest, because it means taking everything apart again, which is pretty pointless. For the sake of the thing, you can have these. I doubt I'm going to use that. I'll put your original ones back in. But I guess what I'd say is get this back into the middle and then retune one more time. horrible creaking by locking these off good and proper. And then retune. There we have it. I think that's going to be, well, apart from soldering this earth wire back on, I think that's going to be the end of this. I tried everything within my powers to get it to work. It's flawed, as you can see. Get rid of these extra bits which we don't need. But it should now play as quite a nice hard-tailed guitar, remembering that wherever you put the block back in, or whatever block you put in, you will need to retune, because it's not perfect. Even if it was cut square, it wouldn't be the perfect shape each time. There's one more consideration with this, is that right now it's a little bit close to the edge on the what do I call it, side, a bit close to the edge on the treble side, and so really we could do with a bit of pulling towards me. So push it on there, plenty of torque on here. And now let that push. So we're kind of getting a bit of force into it, hopefully. And then just have a look. Put a bit more balance out of it. It's quite tricky to get it to do anything. Oh look, I've got some string trees chucked in there as well, which I didn't use in the end. Let's see if I can just persuade this way. A bit of bend. Just leaning a bit on it. That's better. That's good. It's giving me back a correct balance. And that's how you do a realignment. Crank that on. Okay. So now we have properly aligned down here, so we've got about the same amount either side. That doesn't matter because that's no longer doing anything. It's history. So I kind of kept it as far out of the way as possible. We'll bring up the watch it a little bit, pick up. Oh crap, I remember I am going to do something else. I've got to change this pickup over, haven't I? Oh, hellfire. Well, I've done what I can with the tremolo anyway, so I guess it will be a case of changing the pickup over, leaving this as is, or leaving it alone I should say. So right now, just get this heated up to put the earth wire back on the ground. What time is it? Oh lordy, look at that. Half the day, more than half the day gone. Right, so I'll just cut this back. So anyway, there we go. Can't really do anything else other than change the entire block over, and we decided that's not what we're going to do. So get this earthed off, and then at least it's still straight in line. It hasn't improved any. I can see the inside of the trem down here, the tremolo arm fits in there, so I wonder, may be able to tighten this up. Oh, maybe, I think so. Hey, that's better. It's not going to make any difference to how it plays or doesn't play, unfortunately. So when we're up to speed, which according to this is right now. Oh, I've got a very special substance that I want to try out in a minute. Tip cleaning stuff. Let's try it in a sec. Okay, on you go, friend. Right, oh, let's try it. Where's it gone? Some special stuff from China. Okay, that seemed to clean everything off nicely. Just plunged it in this weird concoction that could be anything for all I know. Anyway, right, listen, that's, I'm afraid, that is it. Oh, apart from changing the bleeding pickup back again, apart from changing the pickup over, which won't take very long, it just requires a bit of poking in the back in this little pocket here. Apart from that, I'll have to leave this as is. I'll also do the screws in the tuners over there, line them up, make sure they're on proper, and that will be a lot. One hates to concede defeat, but when one starts with something made quite crudely in a faraway place, sometimes one has to. So I think it makes sense that if Rich enjoys playing the guitar and the pickup, when we change it over, if he enjoys both those aspects, then you never know, it might be worth putting a decent quality tremolo on. You know, given that you can always take that tremolo out and put it somewhere else again later, so you're never stuck. You're not committed to having it forever in this thing. Okay, so what I want to do now is just line these up. I have a feeling they actually line up quite well on the original holes, which is a nice turn up for the book. It's the only nice turn up for the book on this guitar. I'm overjoyed, in fact. One's a tiny bit off, but heck, I can live with that, given that the rest is all so nicely done. Let's do it. There's the hole, come on, got to go in endways. That one's a little bit off, doesn't want to go in. I don't really want to drill another hole on top of that one because it's not a lot of, there won't be much room to do. Problem with any screwdriver like this is it's very difficult to get them anywhere near close to the locking devices, so you really need a sort of thin screwdriver, and even then it turns the locking wheels, and then even then it tries to scratch the housing as it goes in. Lock, please. So hopefully Thank you. Well, try as we might. As we might, we can't make it work. But you got some lovely new tuners, locking tuners, holding tight. A nice low first fret action. Set with this little device, which I quite like. A blocked off trem, which if you push too hard, will try and drop out the bottom, but so don't do that. If it does, you have to retune it and then reset your fine tuners and put them back together. Now, having tightened that down again, that's probably gone out of tune again. Let's find the tuner. Well, actually, we don't need this one now. Let's just do it off here, by ear. Even though it's the wrong pickup, it still works. It sounds quite nice, but you can see the top E is quite a way off. But we'll put the correct one on when that comes in. But meantime, that's going off to one side for a rest, because nothing more I can do with that. So don't worry about. I'm not going to show changing the pickup over. Oh, magic arm, magic arm, no magic arm. Do what you're told. Yeah, I'm not going to film changing it over, so that's it for now. See you on another one soon. Sorry about that, it was a very non-standard one, but I have got a load of standard ones to do this week coming up, so you'll see loads of them. Okay, see you soon.